At a recent press conference, Mayor Daley was joined by community leaders and law enforcement officials to announce new initiatives aimed to curb youth violence. Here are highlights of the October 8th news conference.
I'm here today to address the most troubling and frustrating challenge our city faces today, the brutal violence that is killing our children. And violence against Chicago's young people is unacceptable. It sickens all of us. Every time we lose a child, our city diminishes in our society. For years, I have joined thousands of march with aldermen, senators, representatives, congressmen, community people, ministers, all of it, day after day, week after week. The police department has implemented many new strategies, yet the violence goes on, and some people seem to take the brutal murders of our young people just in stride. It's something that happens. It isn't something just because you live in a city. Well, I disagree with that. None of us, and I say none of us, I don't care who you are, ever have to accept violence, whether in a home, around a street, or any community. Chicago is better for that. We have to some way channel this energy and passion into ending our violence against our children. Of course, improving our schools, creating jobs, and economic opportunity. But there's no answer to this. If there was one answer to the complex challenge, I don't think there is. And as a parent who lost a child, and my child suffered, and we suffered with them. And when you lose a child, you lose part of your soul. You lose part of your whole life. And what is wrong with happening today in America or in this city? That when you lose a child, that is something you're brought into the world. That's a gift from God. These are not just facts out there, or just you're not looking at their name or their face. It isn't just a video. It's a child. And whether a child got killed last night or a child injured, we have to be able to look at society and find out what has happened to all of us. And it's not just government response. I wish we had all the answers, but it's not going to be government response. And let's be honest, all of us, you have to stand up to gangbangers and dope dealers, or those who are going to commit violence against your family. If you don't, then unfortunately, they take over your family. They take over the block, and they take over the school or the park or anything else. And so right now, we have men and women overseas dying for this country. This country should be better to the young people of America, and not just the city of Chicago. So we must do all we can at a local and state level, and I told that yesterday. Gangs are not a particular problem for one community. Gangs are involved in drugs on a daily basis, and I've told this. And I'm not making any excuses, so I hope you don't say that. I'm just telling you, I've told you 1,000 times, the gangs are bigger than anybody else who believes. Their structure is much more sophisticated, and they move from state to state and even country to country. It all deals with drugs and guns, and those are the two things. The way guns get into this society is someplace from another state. In other words, go from one state to another, and drugs too. Until our country and all of us realize it's basically destroying our people, then we have a long way to go. We've instructed Chicago Police Department time and time again to review how they fight gangs, guns, and violence continually. And they're doing a tremendous job in seizing more and more guns on a daily basis, and they do. I've asked the City Corporation Council to review whether all we can to fight gang violence and look at that particular in city ordinances. Yesterday, we had the fortune, yes, with Attorney General Eric Holder, U.S. Attorney General, and of course, Arnie Duncan here. And I asked him, especially, well, if a gun is coming from Mississippi, if drugs are coming from outside, do we wait till it comes? What do we do? What is the response? You can't let everything flow in. You have to some way prevent this. And I'm challenging them, again, to deal with the real issues of America, gangs, guns, and drugs on a daily basis. And not to take away from anything else of what they're doing. Any other prosecution, they can prosecute. But again, you have to be able to deal with this. We'll be arguing very shortly in the U.S. Supreme Court about our gun law in place. We don't think guns belong in Chicago. But others believe that guns are the answer to solve violence in our society. We don't think so. So we asked the Attorney General to deal with that Supreme Court case, to come with us and argue on behalf of us. We think we should be able to lay that down. We should reenact the assault weapon ban. America thinks assault weapons are going to solve all these issues in our society. Just think of an assault weapon. They have them in Afghanistan and Iraq, but some way American citizens can have assault weapons to deal with issues in their community or their family. And I said time and time again, I repeat it, parent or loved ones must accept responsibility to keep your children safe and have a home environment. And that means understanding what parenting is all about. And that means, again, it's called love of your child and some discipline. It's simple as that. It doesn't require us to send everybody to college to become a parent, but it requires other people, other parents and loved ones in a community to all come together and talk about parenting. And some people have real problems in a community. Let's be realistic. Some have alcohol, drug problems. We know that. So we know that. So we can understand that. But again, that child is worth saving. Because the adult has an issue, we should be able to save the child. We should not put the child in harm's way in any community. Again, let's all deal with the city's curfew. Time and time again, we all talk about that. The police department shouldn't be going around arresting every kid. Every parent, everybody should be concerned about curfew, because we see the escalation after curfew and what can take place against a child who stays out after curfew. It's simple as that. And of course, all the programs. To me, I think the programs of after school and the programs on Saturday, you cannot let a child go to school 6 hours a day. You need after school programs. You need a Saturday program. You need a Saturday program because when the problems start Friday and happen Saturday, you are waiting for Monday to get back to school. And that would happen. And so I firmly believe that Saturday is a very, very important time for us. I also challenge our community and business and faith-based leaders to do their part. Safe passage to and from a school or to and from a bus. Safe haven program. Become a mentor. What is a mentor? Mentoring is just mentoring a child, whether in elementary and high school. Anybody can do that. You can mentor children. Anybody can do that. You mentor your own children, you can mentor another child. And I think that is very important because children are looking for role models. Unfortunately, maybe they don't have a role model in their family, but they're seeking to get role models. And I think mentoring is very, very positive. Tell the story where you came from. We have people who have lived in public housing for many, many years, are basically good, law-abiding citizens. And let's not say all CHA residents are gangbangers and dope dealers. Let's not put the stamp on them and say they're the ones to blame. Everybody has part of the problem, but you should not do that. And today I'm announcing additional short and long-term steps. So there's nothing wrong with this because you evaluate this, you look at the situation, then you look at it again. They're aimed at providing immediate relief and law enforcement to those students, schools, and communities that are most at risk. These efforts will not diminish our ability to fight crime or protect students and other communities. Over the long term, I want to help more young people stay away from the life of gangs, guns, and drugs, and provide support within the community. But again, to do this, we must immediately focus on at-risk schools and students, both in the schools and in the community around the schools. For example, in schools, I've challenged our public school leaders to immediately invest economic stimulus funding to help create what Ron Huberman called the culture of calm in our high schools. Principals at 45 high schools that house the 1,000 most at-risk students will have an opportunity to access these funds to support new school safety measures and also help the student. They'll also be able to provide programs, which is the key, that will keep students more engaged in school. And maybe that requires more after-school programs, I'd be very frank. Engaging them, showing them they have some future. Earlier this year, I've asked the Chicago Public Schools to provide support for those students deemed most at risk getting involved with gangs, guns, and drugs to intervene and provide an effective support system. By the end of November, they expect to provide 200 of these students with ongoing social services, support a youth advocate who will provide mentoring and education support to stay in school. And they will provide these students with the opportunity to hold a job in the community. So you're really holding on to that child, regardless of who the child is. Other steps to address the problem of school property, for example, protection of our students, Chicago Police Department, to basically deploy more resources at troubled schools at dismissal times. The police department is working closely, again, with Chicago Public Schools and the community, that would shift day to day in regards to that. In addition, They will launch a new Safe Student program to deploy an additional 44 officers to work in 3-hour overtime shifts, coincide with school dismissal. It's when the school dismissal, right there for 2 or 3 hours. And again, we have all the statistics. Between 2 o'clock or 2:30 and 6 o'clock, there's more violence. Everybody's known that. And that's why after-school programs is the most effective program in the country, is after-school programs. And we told that to Arnie Duncan. Again, it's the after-school programs that you need. We've asked the police department to basically deploy officers in and around the public transportation routes and stops at key hours during the day. For example, a resource at 95th in the Red Line bus terminal, where we know students from a number of high schools will go there. A total of 148 officers and 78 police vehicles are being assigned to cover the CTA before and after. But again, we have to get back. Everybody went to a different high school. Everybody. But we have to get back to understanding, yes, there's rivalry between high schools. Yes, I'm so-and-so, I'm so. But they're not gang kids. They're not all gang kids. It's a rivalry. And we cannot allow rivalry to take place in regards to violence. It's unacceptable. And that comes from the family. And that comes from the school as well. Yes, everybody has a rivalry. Everybody does. High school's all that. But it shouldn't be taking place in regards to any violence. And whether kids going from school, they're proud of their sweaters, they're proud of their school, regardless of where you come from. And that will always be. But again, deployment and getting daily intelligence from the school and from the Chicago Police Department. Daily intelligence about what is happening in the school. And that means you need street workers Friday and Saturday, because the problems do happen on Friday and Saturday that always take place in Monday or Tuesday in the school. So we know that. So you have to have a continued effort in regards to the community almost 6 days a week. We asked both the Chicago the Police Department and the Chicago Public Schools to better coordinate all their safety efforts at these 45 schools and hold regular meetings with the principal and community leaders and the aldermen in those schools. Again, you cannot say one plan is good for all. It's not going to be that way. You do it school by school and community by community, which is very important. And then you get more people involved in CAPS and more people involved in their local school council and more people to basically volunteer on behalf of their children. We asked the CAPS office to recruit more businesses to participate in the CAPS Safe Haven program that would play an important role. And they've done a very good job in many communities, Safe Haven programs. Also, we'll be implementing a new community intervention program in 3 communities, most at risk of youth violence, model and initiative we plotted this summer in Inglewood, which was successful in reducing crime through increased communication, collaboration between the community and the police department. That has worked very well in Inglewood. The effort is intended to improve the way we deliver both law enforcement and support services in these communities. Now, you can't blame law enforcement. This whole issue is not blaming somebody. Don't get into blaming anyone. It will involve police personnel, community, working for unique strategies in and around those schools and effectively use the resources. Because as federal money comes, that is not the answer. The answer is not just more money thrown at the problem. The problem is everybody look back, let's relax, find out what is wrong with the family and how we can help that family. Also, Department of Children and Family Services State, we have many foster kids in many foster homes. And that's the other thing. They have to be able, all the professional people have to understand that child at the age of 12 has been in 7 foster homes. That child has been in the last 2 years in 3 foster homes. Or that child was a victim of a crime. Now he or she is an offender in the juvenile court. In one court, they're a victim, and the next court, unfortunately, become an offender. Everybody has to know that. The teachers have to know that, and the principal. Everybody else in the community knows about it except the professionals. And that requires to change state law on that. Because what is the best interest of the child is to help that child. If every child knows everything about that child in the classroom and the teacher doesn't by law, then there's something wrong basically with the law. And the same thing with the federal law. They have to be able to give information to the schools to deal with how can we help that child, as simple as that. And so again, dealing with this challenge, it is a challenge because we are now, truthfully, in a budget crisis, the city is. But at the same time, we're using about $100,000. We're forming a new partnership with United Way and Metropolitan Chicago to place 100 students in short-term job opportunities in underserved communities. At the same time, January 2010, I've asked the city's Department of Family Support Services to use $1 million proceeds from our parking meter lease to fund at least 500 jobs and after-school opportunities for young people, including at youth risk, and providing whether return to school or GED programs. So it's very comprehensive. It does not just involve the police, it involves the schools, it involves everyone. And these numbers are significant because every time you save one child, you're saving many other children. And that is the issue. Already we have announced there will be more leftover funds from the Chicago pursuit of 2016. We'll be using those in the Park District and other places as well. Again, we must use every resource at hand to keep all of our children in positive activities. Our juvenile justice system has played a role in addressing youth violence. So in partnership with the Cook County Juvenile Court, we have developed a new pilot initiative aimed at reducing youth violence involving guns. So if a child arrested for unlawful use of a weapon, it cannot be treated like spitting on a sidewalk. There's a message there. He or she has a gun and they fire the gun. The unlawful use of a weapon. We're trying to impress everybody that child needs help. Even though he or she missed, that isn't the problem. It's a problem they had the gun and they're willing to fire it. And it's not just a case in that court. You have to do something with that child. You just can't dismiss the case and let that child come out in the community and no one says anything about it, or no one knows about it because the state law prevents giving that information out. And I think that is very, very important. Maybe that child needs mentoring. Maybe that child has real problems in the home. Maybe he or she has been a foster child. And again, you have to have a holistic approach to youth violence. Next month, the City Office of Domestic Violence will host a summit to develop recommendations for better addressing the link between youth exposure to domestic violence in the home and youth violence on the street. If there's violence in the home, is there violence on the street by that youth? And so whether it's the male beating, attacking, punching, the woman in the home, that does affect the child. Let's be realistic. They're responding to a problem in the home, and it becomes violence. And unfortunately, that child uses the violence out on the street. And we're going to look at that very, very carefully. We will begin identifying new opportunities for community organizations that will work with troubled youth to incorporate more youth violence prevention strategies in a day-to-day program. All these steps are basically finally looking at a permanent way to develop a long-term strategy, continue, and always be able to correct it or change it. And there's nothing wrong with that. As I pointed out, I've asked the Attorney General to look at the Department of Justice resources in Chicago dealing with gangs, guns, and drugs, because that is a national, it's not a local issue. Also, to basically share critical information between school officials and local law enforcement on youth violence. They have to give us waivers on that. You cannot leave the schools out in the dark. And to provide more funding, not just for police officers, again, but for after-school programs. I can put all the police you want in every school. That's not going to solve the issue. The issue is the quality of programs after school and on Saturday here in the city of Chicago. Arnie Duncan has already committed $500,000, a federal grant, to help the Fenger High School community. We'll be working with the community, the principal and the community and the aldermen, all those involved. And this is not only our challenge, and I think maybe it's a wake-up call for all of us in regards to what has taken place here in this city. Thank you very much.